We have a bit sitting. Okay, we're at a house a bit. Others have a bit of I don't know what they're kind of making shows. Yeah, or, something like that. Then we have not too much activity. The Canadian Shoutcast. They want to have a transportation system. We're making that. They want to have water and heating. We're making that. They want to have probably electrical power to do the chores, probably from something like heat from wood. Okay, they want to be able to light a fire for the wood stove without really suffering it. Okay, without being too far out. They want to be able to have a house. Okay, probably, or a lot of them want a lot of fellowship, a lot of community type of sponsorship. I notice that some people want sponsorship like we see for computer games, where the computer game is kind of driving their activity during the day, where they have a higher level of accomplishment in the computer game, of course, and also a higher level of kind of attention, okay, to the activity, so that it's let's say if it was work or school, they might tend to kind of wobble, okay, a little bit. So let's say that that's accomplished by having somebody that's in the background that they maybe don't know, probably, okay, or possibly a family member or both, who's administering their environment. They're putting the challenges in front of them, and they're kind of feeding them with questions at a certain type of pace. Is this kind of the same as TV? How it has like advertisements and certain energy amounts and certain frame rate, I think they call it, or the amount of pictures in like they do a camera. Somebody would talk to me about it once, where they do a picture, let's say a section of, let's say 5 seconds of film, and then they do some other section is in a different location. It's like a blink. Okay, now we don't have that. I don't have that experience, just regular blinking, regular experience. But it jams the jams. It buzzes the attention. Okay, it causes the individual to attend very closely. Okay, the thing, the activity, all that stuff. So it's kind of like that. Like they have the ability to control the scene, the ability to control the music in the background, the ability to kind of produce an environment. I noticed that the Canadian cast person, let's say that that's a person who's kind of programmed to be used for training. It doesn't mean they don't have a name. It doesn't mean that they don't have a purpose. It doesn't mean that it just means that somewhere they got the name, they got the purpose, but somewhere the family decides they're going to use them for training the other kids and set them lower. And then their purpose is stuck. The person is obligated, or not, whatever. Okay, somehow, to whatever extent they feel it, they have, wanting to deliver their work, their purpose, their all kinds of different things. Mostly have family, etc. All those things. Then the machinery that's put them in the family position of being stuck, under their siblings, or being stuck, not necessarily having all of the master controls of the social circle that allow them to schedule people, allow them to organize and all that. Those are things that build up over many, many years, and they may benefit from having kind of an administrator like an activity administrator. I think it's like a secretary or like a manager of a business. If you ever talk to a manager of a business, at one level, they're like hiring somebody, they're interviewing, they're writing the paycheck, or something like that, or somehow they're organizing stuff like that. But at another level, They're thinking with the persons who are working for them, the employees, and they're setting them to their task, and they're modeling the task for them in their, maybe physically or maybe in their imagination, so that the tasks become easy to do, and so on, very, very regular, and the persons become very able, to yes, that's so, to work. So, yes. Anyway, there's a little conversation on the side. If we had that, like I noticed that housekeeping, administration, and the same for commercial space, and those sorts of things. Like a lot of the situation for some levels of Canadian caste persons are that they fit into an area like that, and the area stains those people, and then they get used usually as a pot of abilities that people can draw upon, which is improper. Of course, there people remain for somewhat unpaid and are not fulfilled, are not able to really accomplish their. So that's not really acceptable. But the people are at least looking at it. If they weren't looking at it, we wouldn't even know what it would look like. So it's not. I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm saying it's sort of like something that's on the way to something else. Something that's on the way to something better. First, there was. Well, we could name examples, but they all sound exactly like that, right? The first thing we say wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be the thing we want. So we won't choose that. Anyway, instead we could choose somehow liberating or elevating. Now, one of the things they showed us is a type of world. There must be 100 science experiments for it that indicate an environment that's based on distribution. For 2020, we're going to talk about it, but other people can control whether this is published or isn't published, because they would consider it somewhat sensitive. Even though it's been many movies and books and so on. And it's the idea that the computer processor, that is a person, is able to do a certain number of functions, and that it's interchangeable. That a person can, some other person can negotiate with them, and negotiate to give them extra functions, or so like that. Then, which we don't. But when they do that, then so hopefully I'll receive more. So then the functions increase for one person. They have more abilities, more computing abilities, and more functions that are developed to a usable level. And then the other person has fewer. It's like that. Now, I don't know why it's like that. In my model, every person is let's say a computer object, and the number of abilities are not limited. If you give an A to one person, it doesn't mean that some other person can't be an A. There's no draw on it, except that there's the introduction of the theory of visibility, I guess we could call it. That's not exactly the right name for it, where if somebody says that environment is such and such, that person is doing something in our environment, I'd like to mark it. I'd like to register that something is occurring. So I'm going to paint a certain type of picture, and they hire people to, like, almost like actors, to present a certain type of picture. So they present it, and then, like, maybe they present it on the person who's causing them some grief or something else, or some profit. It could be so then now maybe that person doesn't want to present it themselves. If they put it out of the environment, the person who presented it is likely to cast it again. For some reason, they're going to think they have to overcome an obstacle in order to be successful. But if they instead cast it off of themselves and cast it onto another person who's maybe their brother, or sister, or somebody next to them, then the person who's originally cast it, they look and they see the attribute somewhere in the environment. They don't feel the absence of it. They have so the marking that they've made is respected, which we haven't made any particular marking on this day. We don't have anything to do with any particular activities or nothing at all. But the reason why I mention it is because that leads to a society that always is trying to balance things. It's always trying to, okay, it feels that if we add intelligence somewhere, we have to take it, okay, from somewhere else. Or if we add, okay, say, etc., all the things that are, okay, like that. So now then, let's say that somebody in the family is administering that. Let's say the master cast. Okay, they have a lot of research ahead, a lot of mapping about the future, a lot of knowledge about what the family has been in previous generations and what the family plan is for future generations. So how everybody fits in is known to them. Okay, usually depend on the depth of the family, of course, or also many things. Okay, there's many dependencies. So let's say that they have that knowledge, and they have the knowledge of distribution of the features of a family. Then they would want possibly to distribute some features onto somebody who may be a Canadian cast. The person might be they aren't aware. They aren't experiencing the depth of the family, telling them the history of their previous generations. They aren't aware of it. They might have seen some show, but they don't know it. Okay, they aren't knowledgeable about distribution. They aren't knowing or sensing the component list of programmatic objects that are usable or not usable, or theirs or somebody else's. They can't. Okay, maybe they just haven't attained that level yet. Then somehow they need to have a good day. Let's say that's the Canadian cast person. Canada's the place that they come to because of the maple leaf, because of the geography. They look at the geography. That Great Lakes, that looks just like me. I know somebody's controlling my day because I read my resume, and all of the words in it are not the words that accurately represent what I'm about. I don't know how they're doing it, because all of the things are the things that I might have done for work or might have done for recreation or school. Okay, but somehow that thing does not read even though it might. Okay, it could be arranged the opposite just as easily. And it turns out that there's languages that are within the literal that are able to sway things, impressions, and sort of a spelling of things, or a verb phrases, sometimes we call it, or things that are one type of word are having a role as another type of word, as a verb, or as like that. So somehow there's been an influence that somebody is crafted, some master cast maybe is crafted onto a Canadian cast person, and they travel all day. They're a little bit not knowing everything about it, but hopefully it'll all work out. Thinking about their family, they're sort of like the Great Lakes. They're looking towards Hudson Bay, looking towards the belly. They're gonna have, and then at some point, which I wasn't aware of the geography actually, but maybe somebody is, and they see that's the geography there. They're going to go to Canada. Okay, they need to escape that grip on their mind. They need to escape that grip on their intellectual situation. Somehow, they need to make a reach for a new country, a new place that has room for them to have children, room for them to be. Now, right now, we got a terrible bunch, who are telling stories about zapping people on their reproduction, misleading them and sending them into war to die, misleading them and sending them to the Yukon to freeze to death. It's just, as we've had a century of it, of the 19th century is a devastating century for the Canadian cast, of people, because of the verb phrase of the number. So then, thank goodness for the 20th century. Let's hurry up and get to it. The century that should place us with a spouse. And now the thing about spouses is, with a Canadian cast person, that the person isn't aware of all those things. And the spouse presumably is what do they call it? There's a business that's on the internet called Wayfair, which kind of sounds like that the wife is an heir, is a master cast, type of person, and that they are, let's say then, really controlling massive amounts of the person's liberty. The Chinese have a picture for it where there's a character that's two drawings of a person walking. I think I have it on my cup, actually. There's a little guy, and then the picture, the Chinese character has a cup that goes over the person's head, and it connects to the wife, to a wife or girlfriend or somebody who's managing them, and presumably, like, they're casting the environment for that person. They're casting the acceptance level. They're casting all of those things. It's all about probably male-female relations, proper breeding, and arriving in a timely fashion, in a way that's reasonable. Okay, regular, you might say. Then that type of situation is probably pretty good. Okay, that might be the ideal. We're not sure if a person is Canadian caste. It's like herbivores and carnivores. The air person, by definition, is trained on how to kind of keep their house, defend their house, climb if they have to, even if, in a number of situations, climb, or how to stay low. They know those types of kind of the best knowledge the family has. They've packed into that person, and the other person they've used for training. And don't bite your sister or brother, because that's the person who's probably going to be navigating, from their view. So that's how. So then it's like putting a herbivore, a Canadian caste person, who might be tough. They might be the heaviest person, the biggest person, the strongest, the fastest, something like that. They might be really smart and all that, but they just are not trained in those ways. They don't. It'd be like a person who doesn't know about the registry of a computer versus somebody who can operate the registry of a computer from their imagination. At the speed of light, they're working at like a piano keyboard. And then so if you put them together as a couple, you have to say, well, what are they getting from it? What's you have to make sure that one isn't just a dinner item, which happens. And a person can research that, they can check it, and almost for sure they'll be told, that is. If that situation is so, then usually a person is advised ahead of time. That they get consumed in a certain situation, they better be careful. Anyway, the master caste, of course, has all of that ability, and the Canadian caste want to be with them. They have a name, they have a name and a function, a role, and they might have, from their experience as a Canadian caste person, remarkable experience that is specific to the work that the world is doing now. For this century, the 20th century, and the time when the north of Canada, which has geography that's all about it, and is completely empty, almost, except let's respect the Eskimo, who's there, and in small numbers, and also let's respect nature so that we don't screw up one thing and then harm another. How that would be, like that. So we have to be very careful. But basically, the Canadian caste person worldwide has a huge role in the north of Canada, and that presumably will lead to new roles in space and new roles in new colonies. On other planets, and so it's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat day. The Arctic is very accessible. A person drives there or takes a train, and occasionally an aircraft is there to Cambridge Bay mostly, or somewhere like that. Not too much. It's not a huge tourist a place, because the extraordinarily cold temperatures have not been adapted for yet. It's almost a stormtrooper type of gear. That's required. Which of course we're going to have, obviously, now that I mention it, and that'll probably improve the usership there, I think, because everybody will be dreaming about it. Am Marty Holmes, Sturgio, Ontario. It is January 16th, 2018 +1.